Do you want to learn how to make your very own Roblox UGC hat and make thousands of Robux in a single day? Well, look no further, because in this video, you'll learn how to model, texture, and upload your very own UGC. All you need is Blender, and if you really want, you can also use Substance Painter, because I go over how to make the texture in both programs, so stay tuned. Now enough wasting your time, let's boot up Blender and begin. To start, I import a Roblox rig and a couple of references. I would recommend at least 2 references, preferably with different perspectives. Then press Shift A and drag in a circle. Using this, extrude and do a rough block out of the hat. Try to keep the proportions and rotations accurate. Remember that this doesn't need to be perfect yet. It's just a block out, so we'll add more details to it later. Also, the time-lapse speed is at 400% for anyone who's wondering. Now I add a Shade Auto Smooth modifier and turn up the angle slightly so it becomes smooth. Then I noticed that the width of the hat was slightly messed up, so I adjusted it along an axis. You can do this by pressing S for scale and pressing one of the axis keys, X, Y, Z. After that, I tried beveling the edge loops, but since it causes too many weird errors, I decided to smooth it out manually by adding loop cuts and slightly adjusting the position and scale. If you get a weird shading around the center, it's because there are too many different loop cuts in space. So just try to spread them out while maintaining the original shape. Most of the time modeling was just tweaking this shape, so take your time and make something that you are happy with. When you are done, add a cylinder and scale it to the reference size. Then delete the top and bottom faces because we're going to replace it with a grid fill. This will help with the topology when we add a subdivision surface modifier. And adjust the grid fill so that it fits the cylinder. Then add a couple loop cuts into the cylinder so it creates a little better topology, as well as scaling it down to make it a little less flat. As a quick tip, topology are faces and vertices that make up the surface of the mesh, and it should usually be squares of about the same shape. This helps for shading and adding modifiers in the future. Anyways, shade smooth and add a subdivision surface modifier. And if you use Substance Painter to texture, add another subdivision surface modifier. And now it should be slightly round at the edges. Now we want to add the random fluff type effect. And we do this through a displacement modifier. And set the texture to clouds. And also make sure to apply the scale of the object by pressing Ctrl A. Then turn down the displace modifier strength until it looks good to you. Remember, you can only learn by doing, not copying, so try to not absolutely follow exactly everything I show, so you can become independent and grow on your own. Now if you're using Substance Painter to texture, duplicate this model and press H to hide it, because if you have Substance Painter, we'll be baking in details of the higher subdivided model into the lower one. If you're using Blender to texture, you don't need to do this. Then make sure the modifiers you have on the shown model are one subdivision surface and one displacement map, and then apply both. Alright, now is a good time to do a little optimization. Because Roblox UGC limits hats to 4,000 tries, we will be removing some faces that won't be seen. Also, to select the surrounding faces like I am, press Ctrl and the plus key. Now it's time to make that little puffball. So add in a UV sphere, and add another displacement and subdivision modifier. Adjust it until you think it looks good. If you have Substance Painter, do the same process of having one model of one subdivision modifier, and another with 2 subdivision modifiers for detail baking. Now the main model is basically finished, so if you're still above the 4K try limit, delete some hidden faces. And if you're still above at this point, then dissolve some edge loops by alt-clicking on an edge. By the way, you can press 1, 2, or 3 to change between vertex, edge, and face select. At this point, I still didn't love the shape of the hat, so I tweaked it again. Now if you're using Substance Painter, make sure the 2 models are still in the same place and have the same rotation. And again, if you're texturing in Blender, then you can ignore this. Finally, you can delete some of the bottom faces and turn it into a circle by right-clicking and using the loop tools. You can enable loop tools by going into Edit, Preferences, then Add-ons or Extensions, I forgot, and searching loop tools and enable it. Then extrude it up and press F to fill it in. And since 99% of players won't see this, it doesn't need to be that pretty. Also go and enable face rotation and flip any red faces by pressing Alt-N. Then you can rotate and scale it to however you want it to look. This video is brought to you by me and my own UGC group. We create high quality and realistic hats, and you can commission your own accessory for $40. Just message me on Discord. This is the best way to support the channel, so thank you and back to the video. And finally, it's time to texture in Blender. Any Substance Painter users, you can skip a little. So apply all of the modifiers on each object and join them together by pressing Ctrl J. Then go into the Shading tab and add in an image texture. I found the one I used here by simply searching up Roblox color board and then save the image. Then plug this image into the base color. After that, go into the UV editing tab. and click here for a full tutorial on how to UV unwrap. If nothing pops up, it's because I haven't made the video yet, so you should subscribe to be notified. Now select the red part of the hat. You can select the entire part by pressing L, then press U to unwrap and select project from view. When doing this, make sure you are locked on an axis. You can do this by pressing the gizmo, using the number pad, or by rotating the screen and pressing Ctrl, which is what I do. Then drag this UV into the desired color. The larger you make it, the more pronounced the gradient will be. Once you are happy with the color, then you can select the two white parts and do the exact same thing. And good job, you just made your very own Santa hat UGC. You can do any touch-ups if you want it to look better. And any Blender users, you can skip a little to the uploading process, because now it's time to show how I texture it in Substance Painter. Now you can UV unwrap this if you want, but I'm going to be using the auto unwrap in Substance Painter. This next step is very important. Select the lower detail mesh and upload it as Santa Hat Low. Then select the higher subdivided meshes and upload it as Santa Hat High. So just to reiterate, you want to upload the lower subdivided model separately from the higher subdivided model. And the red part should be the same on both. It's just the white fluff parts that have different subdivisions. Now is the fun part, and I encourage you to experiment on your own and create your own unique textures. Alright, now that you're in Substance Painter, select the Roblox Surface Appearance template and import the low mesh with auto unwrapping enabled. Then go into the Baking tab and select the high definition mesh here. You can adjust the max rear distance if there are any red spots. And boom, you just baked in a normal map. Now is the fun part, and I encourage you to experiment on your own and create your own unique texture. To start, I drag on a smart material because it has multiple editable parts that I can tweak. Now is a good reminder that Roblox UGC only uses the color map, so you can't do any fancy roughness or metal maps unless you do a special trick. To do this trick, add a filter to your texture folder and add a baked lighting environment. Then go to the Asset tab and bring in a preset to the environment map. And now you have baked in any normal, roughness, and metal details automatically. If you want to learn more about material baking, watch this video. And if nothing popped up, then I haven't made the video yet. So now basically just copy your reference. I personally made two separate material folders for the red and white parts. Now Santa hats don't really have a strong texture, so I go through and remove a good amount of the detail so it looks more smooth. I'll let the time lapse play for a little. Also, you can click on this icon for a lot of extra free Substance materials. I end up restarting my texture, but the process is still the same. Also, I know I glanced past a lot of texturing details, but I will be making a whole Substance Painter to Roblox tutorial, so stay tuned for that. Also, if your color appears to be washed out, then increase the roughness and it will be better. Here is a useful trick that I use in all of my models. In real life, most of the time a color isn't perfect throughout an entire object. There are usually darker or lighter spots, from sun exposure or other things like that. So I create two extra versions of the base material, one lighter and one darker. Then I plug in a dirt or dust smart mask into these, and it creates little darker and lighter spots. The trick is being incredibly subtle so it doesn't stick out. Then I thought about adding some subtle scratches, but I eventually removed them later. Now it's time for a little bit of manual shading. Substance Painter is great for smart masks and automatic workflow, but sometimes doing things manually can really elevate a texture. So around the brim of the hat, I add a path. Then I turn the brush into something a little less perfect and darker. Then I turn down the flow so it's barely visible. So it creates a nice little gradual shadow. And if you want to keep adding details, I encourage you to do so, but I'm done for now. So rename your texture and export only the color map, as well as a mesh from Substance Painter. Then import the mesh into Blender and drag in the texture and hook it up into the base color, and then you're done. Now before uploading it to Roblox, make sure everything looks good. Then scale it down a lot and export the file again. Trust me, this will save you. Now hop into Roblox Studio and import the model. It will probably show up as a grouped object, so ungroup it and rename the part to Santa Hat. Now add in an R15 rig. I use Moon Animator for this, but you can use Load Character Light, linked in description. Alright, now select your Santa Hat mesh and go into Roblox's Avatar Accessory option. Press Next and set the accessory as a hat and hit Next. Now you want to ignore the rig in the workspace and instead look at this one. Scale and adjust it to fit the head. Change it to Generate Legacy Part Accessory and apply it. Now select this accessory and paste it into your rig. If it doesn't fit properly, this is what you do. Go into the handle part and use the mesh property to size it up or down. Then go into the hat attachment part and use the C-frame, not the world C-frame, but the regular C-frame, and manually adjust the position and orientation to what you want. Now I know that there are probably better ways to do this, but using this method I've never got a wrong size or position, so this is what I prefer. So once your hat is at the perfect location, it's time to make a thumbnail for it. For this you need the UGC thumbnail plugin, which is also linked in the description. Now click on the accessory and click on the plugin, and use the studio movement to adjust the camera. When you're happy with the alignment, press accept. Now this is very important. Currently, you cannot change the thumbnail after uploading. So if you have a bad thumbnail, you won't get any sales. So it's critical that you're happy with how it looks. So when everything's good, upload the accessories to Roblox. You can change the title and description, and list it as an avatar item. Then set it as a hat and make the creator yourself or whatever group you want to own it. Then turn off data sharing because you don't want AI taking your job. Then submit it for 750 Robux. It can take a couple minutes, but you should see it in your inventory soon. I highly suggest testing it in both R6 and R15 games before fully uploading it. Once it's good, go into the Roblox Create page and select your group. Then go into Creations and go into Avatar Items and find your hat. Then you can set up to 5 tags and change your title and description. And you can also set the price. I recommend setting it to the price floor, because if it's any higher, customers will probably buy something else. Then upload it for 1,500 Robux. And you just made your very own UGC. Congratulations. Now you should go tell all your friends and guilt trip them into buying it. If you have any questions or encounter any issues, please comment below and I will try to answer them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching and subscribe if this was helpful. Goodbye.